What if I told you that you've never truly been alone, not even for a single moment? Think back to those quiet times when no one else was around, when the room was still, the lights dimmed, and the world felt hushed. Maybe you were lying in bed, deep in thought. Or walking through a forest, the wind whispering through the trees, or sitting in the corner of a crowded cafe, yet somehow feeling like the only person alive. In those moments, have you ever felt a presence that wasn't yours? An unseen companion just beyond reach? A subtle shift in the air, like something, or someone, was there? We've been taught to believe that what we can't see isn't real. That unless something can be measured, photographed, or explained, it doesn't exist. But what if that's one of the greatest misconceptions of our time? What if the very air around you is alive with intelligence, with beings of light and consciousness who are closer than your breath, moving through the same space you occupy right now? You're not imagining things. That subtle sensation you feel when you suddenly pause for no reason, when the hairs on your neck rise without warning, when a quiet whisper of intuition stirs in your chest. That's not fantasy. That's the veil thinning. You see, reality isn't just what your physical senses detect. What your eyes see and ears hear is only a sliver of the full spectrum of existence. There are layers upon layers of energy, frequencies stacked upon one another like unseen dimensions. And in one of those dimensions, overlapping this one like a transparent sheet of glass, spiritual beings are all around you. They're not floating above in some distant heaven. They're not waiting to return on some far-off day. They're already here, beside you as you read these words, in the room with you as you breathe this breath. You don't have to reach across galaxies to touch them. You only have to tune yourself, ever so slightly, to feel what has always been present. Imagine radio stations playing simultaneously all around you. You can't hear them until you turn the dial, until the frequency lines up just right. But the music is there, the signal is constant. In the same way, spirit beings, guides, loved ones, protectors, messengers, are broadcasting their presence into your world. They exist on a higher frequency, one that many people never learn to access, not because they can't, but because they were never told how. Modern life has trained you to fixate on the visible, on noise and screens and constant mental chatter. You've been taught to seek answers in logic and hard data, while dismissing the intuitive, the energetic, the unseen. But long before there were machines and textbooks, humanity understood something deeper. Ancient cultures knew the veil between worlds was thin, that the spiritual and physical were not separate realms, but interwoven realities. The elders, the seers, the mystics, they all spoke of presences that walked beside us, watched over us, and whispered to us in dreams. Today, science is only just beginning to validate what the soul has always known. Energy does not die, consciousness cannot be destroyed, vibration underlies everything. This means you are, right now, an energetic being within an energetic universe. And your thoughts, emotions, and awareness act as a kind of spiritual tuning fork. When you feel a sudden wave of peace for no reason, or a loving thought enters your mind like a soft breeze, you've brushed up against that other side. You've stepped into the overlap. That overlap is what many call the veil. But don't think of it as a wall or a door you must break through. It's more like a shimmer, a thin layer of fog between two meadows. And in moments of stillness, when your mind quiets and your heart softens, that veil becomes translucent. You begin to sense what's always been there: presence without form, energy without density, spirit without body. Have you ever entered a space and suddenly felt overwhelmed with emotion? Or visited a place that made you feel comforted, as if being embraced by something greater? These aren't coincidences. Spirits move through space not the way people do, but the way wind does, invisible yet powerful, felt rather than seen. When your own energy is calm and receptive, you become a natural receiver. And when it's clouded by fear or distraction, you simply miss what's already happening around you. This is why so many people go through life feeling disconnected, not because the spiritual world is absent, but because they've lost the sensitivity to feel it. But that sensitivity isn't gone, it's just dormant. It's waiting for your awareness to wake up again. What if you could remember how to feel? What if you began to trust the subtle more than the obvious, the whisper more than the shout? What if the chills on your skin, the flickering lights, the dreams that feel more real than life, are all signs that you are surrounded, supported, and seen. You don't have to become a mystic or psychic to connect with these truths. You only have to begin noticing. Feel the energy of your space right now. Is there a stillness in the room that seems more than just quiet? A presence that fills the air like warmth, though the temperature hasn't changed. That's not your imagination. That's you brushing up against a reality far older than anything you've been taught to believe. Spirits exist on what you might call parallel vibrational planes. That means they are not above or below, not past or future. They are here, existing in tandem with you, right alongside your physical life. These planes are like invisible floors of a vast building. Most people live only on the ground floor, never realizing there are entire worlds just above their head. But once you discover the elevator, once you learn how to raise your awareness, you'll begin to visit those floors. Not by leaving your body, but by tuning your consciousness. Some call this intuition. Others call it spiritual perception. But no matter what you name it, the truth remains. The spiritual world is not elsewhere. It is here, now, wrapped around you like a sacred blanket, interwoven into your every moment. The only question is, are you willing to feel it? Because once you do, once the veil begins to lift, once you recognize that loving presence behind the silence, you'll realize you've never taken a single step alone, and you never will. What if I told you that the reason you haven't felt the presence of spirits isn't because they're not around you, but because you've been taught not to notice? It's a bold thing to consider, that what you've always longed to feel has been right beside you the whole time. But modern life doesn't exactly prepare you to sense the invisible. It distracts you, conditions you, and programs you to believe only in what you can see, touch, and measure. From the time you were a child, you were encouraged to dismiss your intuition, to silence your imagination, and to doubt anything that couldn't be explained with hard logic or scientific proof. Little by little, that ancient sensitivity, the part of you that could once feel the unseen, was dimmed. And yet, haven't there been moments when something inside you whispered that more was happening than met the eye? Maybe you were lying in bed, and suddenly you felt a shift in the atmosphere, like the air itself became denser, fuller. Maybe you were grieving someone you lost, and in the stillness, you swore you felt them nearby. Not in a memory, not in a thought, but in a presence that moved through the room like a quiet breath. Perhaps you even felt a soft warmth touch your skin, a chill run across your shoulders, a single tear fall without reason. You paused, you looked around, but no one was there, so you brushed it off. You told yourself it was nothing, because that's what you were taught to do. In truth, these weren't random moments, they were invitations, glimpses, brief cracks in the wall that modern life has built around your perception. That wall is made of noise, distraction, screens, pressure, doubt. Every ping from your phone, every headline you scroll, every demand for productivity and perfection, these all pull you further and further away from your natural spiritual center. The world is constantly shouting at you, but the spiritual realm only whispers. And if your life is too loud, you won't hear it. This is the real reason most people never feel spirits. Not because they're incapable, but because they've forgotten how to listen. Spiritual discernment is not a mystical gift reserved for the chosen few. It is not something you earn by being holy or enlightened. It is your birthright. It's as natural to your consciousness as breathing is to your body. Every single person is born with the ability to sense beyond the physical. But over time, you're taught to shut that part of yourself down. You're told to grow up, to be rational, to ignore the things that can't be explained. You're made to feel silly for believing in the presence of something you can't touch, so you suppress it. And with enough years of suppression, you forget it was ever real. But just because you forgot how to feel spirits, doesn't mean the ability is gone. It's just buried, sleeping under layers of cultural programming and emotional noise. And the moment you begin to remember, to question, to awaken, that sensitivity begins to stir again. Like a muscle that hasn't been used in years, it may feel weak at first, uncertain, but it's still there, waiting for you. If you were to sit quietly, right now, and close your eyes, what would you notice? Not the obvious things, not the sound of the room or the rhythm of your breath, but what's beneath that. Is there a stillness that feels alive? Is there a gentle pull in your chest or a feeling that someone, somewhere, is watching over you? This is where it begins, not with flashing lights or dramatic visitations, but with a softening, a remembrance. Think back to your childhood. Do you remember the way you used to sense things? The way a room could feel heavy without explanation? The way you instinctively knew when someone was staring at you, even from across the room? Do you remember talking to someone who wasn't physically there? Maybe even a grandparent you never met? Or feeling safer at night just because you believed someone was protecting you? Children often feel spirits naturally, not because they're special, but because they haven't yet been taught to block them out. Their minds are open, their hearts unguarded. But as they grow, they're told it's their imagination, that what they sense isn't real. And so they learn to tune it out. They learn to mistrust their own inner knowing. You may have had these same experiences. You may still have them now, brief moments when the veil feels thinner, when you can feel something brushing up against your awareness. But your mind, trained by years of conditioning, dismisses it instantly. That's just a coincidence. I'm imagining things. It's just the wind. Over and over again, you talk yourself out of believing what your soul already knows. The truth is, spirits don't need to prove themselves to you. They don't force their way in. They don't demand your attention. They are respectful of your free will. They wait for you to open the door. And that door isn't physical. It's not some ritual or chant or ceremony. That door is your willingness to believe again. Your willingness to quiet your thoughts, to trust your feelings, to honor the subtle over the obvious. You were never meant to live cut off from the spiritual world. You were never meant to navigate this life alone, without guidance, without comfort, without connection to the unseen forces that walk beside you. But we live in a time where we've traded mystery for certainty, presence for productivity, and soulfulness for surface-level stimulation. The modern world doesn't want you to feel spirits, because if you did, you'd start asking deeper questions. You'd begin to remember that you are more than just flesh and bone, that this world is more than just material things, that your life has meaning far beyond what society can measure. And once you remember that, you become powerful. You begin to reclaim your inner authority. You begin to trust the feelings you used to ignore. You start to notice when the energy shifts in a room, when something unseen brushes past your awareness. You begin to recognize that guidance is always available, that love doesn't die with the body, that protection surrounds you even when you feel alone. This is not a fantasy. This is not wishful thinking. This is the deeper reality that's been hidden in plain sight, not by some grand conspiracy, but by the noise of daily life, by the slow erosion of soulfulness in a culture obsessed with speed and logic. But here's the good news. You can unlearn the conditioning. You can begin again. You can soften and listen and notice the subtle invitations. And when you do, you'll realize that the spirits never stopped trying to reach you. You simply forgot how to feel them. But now you remember. And remembering is the first step back home. What if I told you that inside of you, right now, is a finely tuned, spiritual antenna, one that has always been there, quietly picking up signals from realms you've been taught to ignore? It's not a device you wear. It's not something you buy or build. It's already part of your design. Just as your ears are built to hear sound and your eyes are made to perceive light, you have another sense, subtle, intuitive, energetic, that's been with you since the moment you entered this world. It doesn't function through organs, it operates through your aura, that invisible field of energy that surrounds and interpenetrates your body. This field is more than just a poetic idea. It is a living, dynamic interface between you and the spiritual dimensions all around you. Imagine, for a moment, that your aura is like a satellite dish, constantly scanning the environment, receiving impressions, feelings, and messages from frequencies beyond the physical. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every belief you carry, these are all part of the vibrational language your antenna is tuned to. And as your energy shifts, so does the signal you broadcast. And so does the signal you receive. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt that something was off? The lights are the same, the furniture hasn't moved, no one said anything strange, but the air feels heavier, as if some invisible presence lingers just beyond your line of sight. Maybe a chill runs through your body for no reason. Maybe the fine hairs on your arms rise without warning. Maybe your stomach tightens, and you don't know why. Or maybe it's the opposite. You enter a space and feel instantly safe, peaceful, as if something sacred is holding you there, like a silent guardian. These aren't random reactions, they are subtle signals received by your auric antenna. Your energetic field is in constant dialogue with the unseen. And whether or not you're conscious of it, you're always receiving impressions. Sometimes, you'll feel it as a tingling at the top of your head. Other times, a wave of warmth that moves through your chest. You may feel as though someone is watching you, even when you're alone. Or you suddenly think of a loved one who's passed, and in the same breath, feel their presence brushing softly against your awareness. These are not coincidences, they are confirmations. Your inner antenna is active. You're not imagining things, you're perceiving with a different kind of sense, one that's native to your soul, not your body. This antenna is highly sensitive, but it isn't chaotic. It operates by resonance. That means you attract and receive energies that match your current vibration. If you're overwhelmed with fear, worry, or negativity, your field becomes foggy. Your antenna picks up interference. You may sense restless energies that reflect your own state of being. But when you're grounded in peace, love, or even a deep desire for truth, your field clears, your antenna sharpens. You begin to notice more refined impressions, presences that are calm, intelligent, and filled with wisdom. It's not that the spirits change, it's that your signal does. And just like tuning a radio, your awareness clicks into a new station. You start receiving information you weren't open to before. A sudden insight drops into your mind, an answer to a question you never spoke aloud. You may hear a soft voice, not through your ears, but in the quiet chamber of your thoughts. You may feel as though someone just stepped into the room, even though the door never moved. These are all signs that your spiritual receiver is active and attuned. The truth is, you've likely had dozens of these moments. But without the language to describe them, or the belief that they're real, you push them away. You explain them away as coincidence or mood, or just being sensitive. But being sensitive isn't a weakness, it's a doorway. Your sensitivity is your soul reminding you of its true nature. And your aura, your energy field, is the bridge between this world and the next. This energetic bridge doesn't just receive, it transmits. That means spirits can sense you just as easily as you can sense them. Your thoughts, emotions, and intentions send out vibrational signals, like a lighthouse, casting light into the dark. And beings who resonate with that light, guides, ancestors, protectors, are drawn to it. They don't need your words, they feel your vibration. They're aware of your state the moment you begin to shift it. Think about how music works. You don't need to understand the mechanics of a violin to feel something when it plays. The sound vibrates through you, stirs emotion, evokes memory. Now imagine your aura is doing the same, sending out a silent song that only the spiritual realm can hear. If your heart is open, the melody is pure, and those who are meant to guide you respond to that purity. Have you ever been overcome with emotion for no clear reason, only to later realize that something significant happened in the spiritual world, a passing, a visitation, a message? Have you ever seen a repeating sign, like a number, a song, or a symbol, that felt too perfect to be random? These, too, are part of the signal exchange. Your spiritual antenna picked something up, your field received a message, and the universe mirrored it back to you in a way you could understand. This is why grounding and clearing your energy is so important. If your field is cluttered, if your thoughts are racing, or your body is filled with tension, your antenna will struggle to distinguish between random, static, and real guidance. But with just a few moments of silence, with a few conscious breaths, you begin to shift, your field stabilizes, and in that stillness, the messages become clearer. The good news is, you don't need special training to feel this. You already have the equipment. You just need to remember how to use it. The next time you feel a sudden chill in the air, don't brush it off. The next time you get goosebumps from a thought that came out of nowhere, pay attention. The next time you feel the energy in a room shift, don't just call it weird. Ask yourself who or what just entered your field. Start to listen not just with your ears, but with your presence. Because your auric antenna is already active. It always has been. You've just been told to ignore it. But now you know. Now you can begin to tune in, to sense what's really happening behind the veil of the visible. And once you start, you'll wonder how you ever believed you were alone. What if I told you that the spirits you feel around you aren't random visitors from another world? They are reflections of the energy you carry within. There is a law, unseen yet absolute, that governs the way you connect with the spiritual realm. It's not superstition or guesswork. It's as consistent as gravity, as dependable as breath. This is the law of vibrational match. The truth that what you feel on the inside determines who and what you attract on the outside. Every thought you think, every emotion you carry, every belief you hold creates a frequency. That frequency is like a broadcast signal, radiating out from your energy field and drawing in energies that resonate with it. The spirits that come into your awareness, the ones you sense, feel, or even dream about, aren't showing up by accident. They are responding to the signal you're sending. Imagine you're tuning a radio. If you're set to 89.5 FM, you won't hear what's playing on 103.7 FM. You could be desperate to hear that other station, but if your dial isn't aligned with its frequency, you'll never pick it up. The same is true for spirit contact. High-vibration spiritual beings operate on frequencies of peace, clarity, compassion, and unconditional love. They cannot and will not interfere with your free will. They wait for you to raise your vibration to meet theirs. On the other hand, confused, restless, or lower vibration entities dwell in emotional states like fear, anger, sadness, jealousy, or despair. And if you carry those emotions long enough, they become your vibrational address, your personal signal, and that's what you begin to draw in. This isn't punishment, it's resonance. It's not about judgment or morality, it's about energetic compatibility. Water finds its level, vibration finds its match. If you wake up filled with gratitude, speak kindly to others, and hold space for peace in your heart, you're generating a frequency that high vibration guides recognize and respond to. Their presence may come through as sudden clarity, warmth on your skin, the feeling of being wrapped in invisible protection. But if you've been consumed by fear, resentment, or emotional chaos, your field becomes dense, heavy, static-filled. And that's the signal restless energies find familiar. Think about it like walking into a room with music already playing. If you've been steeped in sorrow, you'll hear the songs of spirits who carry sorrow too. They'll be drawn to you, not out of malevolence, but out of recognition. You've both known the same pain. But if your heart is calm, forgiving, open, you'll hear different music altogether, soft, steady, luminous. That's the realm where your highest guides reside. They don't descend into your drama, they lift you up to their light. Have you ever noticed how your emotional state seems to shape what you experience? When you're in fear, the world feels hostile. Everything feels like a threat. Every shadow looks like a warning. And in those moments, the atmosphere itself feels charged, almost intrusive. That isn't just your imagination. Lower vibration spirits often feed off emotional density, not because they're evil, but because that's all they know. They are still entangled in unresolved emotions. They are still learning. But they are drawn to those whose energy mirrors their own. Now, imagine a day where you're filled with joy for no reason. Maybe the sun touches your face just right. Maybe someone you love texts you out of the blue. Maybe you remember a moment when you felt truly alive. On those days, everything flows. You notice signs from the universe. You catch repeating numbers. You get sudden insights without even trying. That's not luck. That's vibration. Your energy has elevated, and in that space, higher spiritual beings begin to walk beside you. You don't have to call them. They already hear you, because they speak the language of joy, the language of alignment. It's important to understand that no spirit can override your energy field. You are never at the mercy of spirits, good or bad. You are the broadcaster. You are the tuning fork. What you feel, you become, and what you become, you attract. This means you hold the power. You are never truly vulnerable, even when you feel fragile. Your emotions may fluctuate, but the more conscious you become of what you're emanating, the more control you gain over the spiritual energies that surround you. Let's take two simple emotional states: fear and gratitude. If you sit in fear long enough, your thoughts become dark. your body tightens. Your breath becomes shallow. The room around you may even feel colder, the atmosphere more pressing. You might feel like you're being watched, like something unseen is hovering near. That's not just fear playing tricks on your mind. Your vibration is opening the door to beings who live in that same emotional climate. Now shift to gratitude. Breathe into your heart. Think of one moment that made you feel deeply loved. Think of something you have now that you once prayed for. In that state, your chest expands. Your breath deepens. The space around you softens. That's not just relaxation. That's spiritual magnetism. Your gratitude becomes a beacon, and high-vibration beings, guides, guardians, ancestors who operate from a place of love, feel your signal and draw near. They don't force their way in, they follow the resonance. This is the secret most people never hear. You don't have to chase spiritual contact. You don't need to beg for signs or try to summon anything. You only need to adjust your vibration. When your energy is in harmony, the right spiritual energies find you. Always. But this also means you need to be honest with yourself about what you're carrying. Suppressed anger, buried grief, lingering shame. These are not just personal emotions, they are energetic frequencies that shape your aura. The more you hold on to them, the more you vibrate at their level. And the longer you vibrate there, the more you draw in spirits who haven't yet evolved beyond those frequencies. It's not about blame, it's about awareness. Healing your emotions isn't just for your peace of mind, it's for your spiritual hygiene. That's why clearing, grounding, and emotional honesty are so essential on this path. When you release what no longer serves you, when you rise out of judgment and into compassion, your field becomes clean. And in that clarity, the higher realms draw closer. You begin to feel that you're not alone, not because you called something in, but because you aligned with what was already waiting. You don't need to fear the spirit world. What you need is to understand how it works. It's not chaotic, it's not unpredictable, it follows laws, just like this one. The law of vibrational match is not based on chance, it's based on choice. Every day, with every thought and emotion, you are choosing your frequency, and that frequency becomes your invitation. So the question is, what are you inviting in? What song is your energy field playing right now? What kind of beings are listening? If you want to walk with light, become the light. If you want to feel love, radiate it. If you want to be surrounded by wisdom, align your thoughts with truth. Because who you attract is always who you are. And once you understand that, everything changes. Have you ever felt like someone just walked into the room even though you knew you were alone? Maybe the air shifted. Maybe you felt a slight breeze across your skin even though no windows were open. Maybe there was a sudden chill that crept up your spine, or a tingling at the back of your neck that made you turn your head without thinking. These moments are often dismissed as tricks of the mind, as coincidences or environmental oddities. But what if I told you they're not imagined? What if these strange, quiet sensations are actually the signals of a spiritual frequency syncing up with your own? There's a phenomenon that explains these moments. It's called sympathetic resonance. In simple terms, it means when two objects share a similar frequency, one can cause the other to vibrate, even at a distance. You see this with musical instruments. Strike one tuning fork, and a second tuning fork nearby, if it's tuned to the same note, will begin to vibrate without ever being touched. The energy moves invisibly between them, and because their natural frequencies match, they begin to resonate together. The spiritual realm works in exactly the same way. You are a being of vibration. Your thoughts, emotions, and presence are all patterns of frequency, dynamic, shifting, and radiating out from you every moment of every day. Spiritual beings are also energy, not in human form, not made of flesh, but existing as pure frequency. And when your vibration matches theirs, even briefly, it creates sympathetic resonance. They don't have to appear in front of you or say a word. Their presence moves through your space, and your body, your energy field, begins to respond. That's what you feel when the room changes. That's what causes the cold air, the goosebumps, the shiver down your spine. Your spirit is registering the arrival of another frequency. This is why you can sometimes feel like you're being watched, even when no one is there. That sensation isn't always paranoia or anxiety, sometimes it's recognition. Your spiritual antenna, the energy field around your body, is incredibly perceptive. It senses even the slightest change in the energetic environment. And when a spirit enters your space, especially one that shares a similar frequency to you, your field begins to resonate with theirs. You might feel a vibration in your chest, a heaviness in the air, or a sudden moment of clarity or peace that seems to come from nowhere. These are not figments of your imagination. These are real spiritual phenomena. And just like in music, different spirits carry different tones. Some are soft and harmonic. Their presence feels like a gentle hum that relaxes your nervous system. Others are sharp and discordant. They stir anxiety or discomfort the moment they enter. Again, this isn't because you're making things up. It's because your energy is responding to an unseen vibration, and your body is the instrument being played. Have you ever walked into a church, a temple, or even an old forest, and immediately felt a sacred stillness? That deep, almost otherworldly peace that settles over you like a warm blanket, that's resonance. You've entered a space where spiritual frequencies have lingered for a long time, where prayer, reverence, or healing have charged the atmosphere. Your energy picks up on it and responds accordingly. The same thing can happen with spirit beings. When a guide, a loved one, or even an unknown presence steps into your field, the room doesn't just feel different, it is different, because two energies have begun to synchronize. And what determines this synchronization? Your emotional state, your spiritual openness, your thoughts in that moment. You might be sitting in meditation, heart wide open, mind at peace. In that moment, your vibration becomes clear, steady, refined. That's the ideal condition for a spiritual being of similar frequency to make contact. You may feel a presence near your crown, a soft pressure on your shoulders, a wave of love move through your heart. You might even feel as though someone has gently placed a hand on your back, even though no one is there. These are not hallucinations. These are energetic echoes, physical effects of vibrational resonance between your field and theirs. And it works both ways. If you're in a highly emotional state, grief, fear, anger, that too broadcasts a frequency. And beings that dwell in or resonate with those frequencies may draw near. This is not always harmful, but it does mean that what you feel is a direct reflection of what you're carrying. The same principle applies. Their presence might create a coldness in the room, a tightness in your chest, an unsettled feeling that something is just slightly off. Your body is trying to tell you that a different kind of energy is present, not necessarily evil, but out of alignment with peace. This is why awareness is everything. When you begin to treat your sensations not as random noise, but as signals, your entire relationship with the spiritual world changes. You start to notice the difference between emotional fear and energetic presence. You begin to track the shift in the atmosphere when you pray or meditate. You learn how to distinguish between your own thoughts and the subtle impressions that arrive from spirit contact. And most importantly, you learn that what you feel is real, even if it can't be seen. The more you refine your inner awareness, the more often these resonances occur, and over time, they become more defined. You might begin to feel the difference between a guide and a loved one, between a passing spirit and one that has walked with you for lifetimes. The impressions become richer, the physical sensations more precise. You might feel a warm pulse in your hands before a healing presence arrives, or a vibration in your ears before receiving a message. It becomes a dialogue, not of words, but of frequency. In this way, the spiritual world is not distant, it's immediate. It's not a place you go, it's a reality that emerges the moment you become still enough to notice it. And when your energy harmonizes with that of a spirit, the veil between worlds becomes almost transparent. You feel them as clearly as you feel your own heartbeat, not because they came from far away, but because they were already near, waiting for the moment when your frequencies align. So the next time you feel a sudden chill, a quiet breeze with no source, or the sense that someone loving just walked into your space, don't be so quick to dismiss it. That moment of resonance is not a mistake. It's an invitation, a reminder that you are more than physical, that you are never alone, and that the spiritual world is not out there somewhere. It's here, right now, singing a silent song that your soul remembers how to hear. What if I told you that some of the most mysterious sensations you've ever felt, those chills down your spine, the tingling at the crown of your head, the sudden warmth spreading through your chest, weren't random at all? What if those moments were signs that something unseen had just made contact with your energy field? There's a sacred truth few people understand. Your body isn't just a vessel of flesh and blood. It's a finely tuned electrical instrument, alive with current, frequency, and vibration. Your nervous system, that intricate web of signals moving through your brain and spine, is not just reacting to the world around you, it's also listening to frequencies from realms beyond it. Spirits, especially those attuned to your soul's journey, can interface directly with this system, not in a way that harms or controls you, but in a way that affirms their presence through your most subtle perception. You might be sitting in stillness, eyes closed, heart open, and suddenly, a wave of tingles moves down your neck and across your shoulders. Or perhaps you feel heat blooming at the top of your head, like someone gently placing their hand there. Maybe you're listening to music that stirs something deep inside you, and as your emotions swell, goosebumps ripple across your skin, even though the air is still. These are not just emotional responses, they are energetic interactions. Your nervous system is lighting up because another field of consciousness has brushed against yours. When spirits make contact, they don't use physical tools. They don't knock on doors or shake the ground. They move through energy, and your body, being an energetic being itself, becomes the interface. Just as radio waves pass invisibly through the air until a receiver picks them up, spirit energy flows through space and interacts with the receiver that is you. Your nervous system becomes the tuning fork, your skin, the echo chamber, your spine, the conductor. Have you ever wondered why these sensations tend to happen when you're emotionally open? It's because openness lowers resistance. When your mind is quiet, when you're not distracted or tense, your energy field becomes receptive. This is especially true during prayer, meditation, grief, deep love, or awe-inspiring moments. In those states, the usual noise of your thinking mind fades away. Your aura softens, your emotional defenses dissolve, and in that surrender, spirit energy is able to approach you gently, safely, lovingly. It doesn't take much, just a slight change in vibration, a subtle presence brushing up against your field, and suddenly, your nervous system detects it. The tingling at your scalp isn't just sensation, it's awareness. The warmth across your chest isn't just body heat, it's spiritual contact. You're being reminded that you're not alone. One of the most common forms of contact is that unmistakable chill or goosebump sensation. People often think of it as their body reacting to a strong feeling. But in spiritual terms, it's a response to presence. You can think of your energy field like a pond. Most of the time, it's still calm, neutral. But when a spirit comes close, especially one vibrating at a much higher or lower frequency, it creates a ripple effect in your energy, and your nervous system feels it instantly. That ripple becomes a shiver, a sudden cold, a flush of tingling that moves down your back or across your arms. You may have noticed this while thinking about someone you love who's passed away. You might have been remembering them, looking at an old photo, or even saying their name aloud. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, a chill moved through you. Maybe the lights flickered, maybe you just felt a shift in the room. That was likely not just memory, it was connection. Your emotional openness sent out a signal, and the spirit responded. They entered your space softly, lovingly, and your body felt it before your mind could make sense of it. Other times, it's warmth you feel, not cold, a spreading heat at the center of your chest, a glow around your head, a pulsing sensation in your hands. These are often signs of high vibrational contact. Beings that operate in pure love, compassion, and wisdom don't generate the kind of energy that shocks or alarms. Their frequency is calming, healing, almost euphoric. So when they step into your field, your nervous system responds with expansion rather than contraction. The warmth you feel isn't just temperature, it's resonance. It's a presence so full of love that your very cells begin to respond. These moments are sacred. They are not imagined, they are real interactions, taking place just beyond the limits of sight and sound. And the more aware you become, the more frequent they grow, not because spirits are suddenly appearing, but because you're finally noticing what's always been there. This is why surrender is such a powerful gateway to spiritual contact. Not surrender in the sense of giving up or becoming passive, but surrender in the sense of letting go of the tight grip on control, skepticism, or fear. When you soften, when you breathe, when you open yourself to the unknown with trust rather than suspicion, your entire field becomes a receptive instrument. Your nervous system, your thoughts, your emotional body, they all harmonize into a state of openness. And it is in that openness that spiritual energies find their way in. You don't need to force these moments. You don't need to beg for signs or try to make something happen. The contact comes when you allow it. When your energy aligns with sincerity, with peace, with readiness. Sometimes, it happens when you least expect it, while you're driving, walking in nature, lying in bed. It's subtle, but unmistakable. And the more you honor it, the more you stop brushing off those chills, or dismissing the tingles, or explaining away the waves of warmth, the more your field begins to awaken. It's a conversation, not a performance. Spirits are listening, and they speak the language of energy. They know you're opening up. They feel your curiosity. They sense your longing, and they respond not with words, but with feeling. So the next time you feel something you can't explain, a sensation that moves through you like a whisper, a pulse of electricity across your skin, a loving warmth that brings tears to your eyes, don't ignore it. Close your eyes, breathe, listen. That is contact. That is presence. That is your nervous system becoming the sacred ground where the physical meets the spiritual. You are not imagining it. You are remembering it. You are waking up to the reality that your body is not a barrier. It's a bridge. And the more you allow that bridge to remain open, the more clearly you'll feel that the spirit world is not far away. It's right here, reaching out, and waiting for you to feel it. What if I told you that not every thought that passes through your mind actually belongs to you? There's a kind of whispering that doesn't come from your own mind, not from memory, not from habit, not even from your subconscious. It arrives quietly, smoothly, like a feather landing on water. A sudden idea with no build-up, a sentence you hear in your own voice, but you weren't thinking it, a visual that flickers across your inner screen, uninvited, yet meaningful. These are not coincidences or daydreams. These are spiritual communications, what some might call thought impressions or mental downloads, and they happen far more often than you realize. Spirits rarely speak in language the way humans do. They don't have mouths, they don't form syllables or shout across some cosmic void. Instead, they speak through resonance, through vibration, through symbols and impulses that bypass the logical brain and land directly in your awareness. That's why the messages they send often feel so sudden, so clear, so certain. You don't have to think about them. You just know. A truth drops into your chest like a key falling into the right lock. Something clicks, it resonates, you feel it. Have you ever been deep in thought and, out of nowhere, a solution appears? One you hadn't been considering, one that just shows up, fully formed, like it came from outside your stream of reasoning? Or maybe you were in the middle of doing something mundane, washing dishes, folding clothes, and suddenly you remember something important that has no connection to what you're doing. That's not always your memory. Sometimes it's a nudge, a whisper, a spirit making contact in the only way they can, through your mind's receptive field. There's a difference between the voice of your thoughts and the arrival of a spiritual impression. Your own mind tends to operate in loops, patterns, echoes of previous worries or ideas. It has a tone. It has a rhythm. But when a thought impression comes from a spiritual source, it often feels cleaner, sharper, more loving. It might still sound like your inner voice, but it carries a different weight. It doesn't argue, or spiral, or repeat. It simply appears, and it's whole. These impressions often come in moments of openness, when you're emotionally still, mentally quiet, or spiritually seeking. That's why so many people receive them during meditation, prayer, or nature walks. You're not forcing anything. You're just open. And in that openness, your mind becomes a channel. The spirits around you, especially guides, guardians, and loved ones, don't need to scream. They just need you to stop screaming inside. Because once the mental noise fades, their messages rise. It might be a visual, a face you don't know, yet feels familiar, a symbol that keeps repeating in your dreams, a place you've never been, yet keep seeing. Or it could be a phrase, clear, direct, and compassionate, that cuts through your confusion. And it doesn't just inform you, it reorients you, it brings peace, it lands in your nervous system like an anchor. These are mental downloads, information transferred in an instant, too fast for words, too whole to be questioned. You don't analyze it, it just is. And often, it shows up exactly when you need it most. The warning that kept you from making a bad choice, the nudge to call someone. The overwhelming sense that everything is going to be okay, even when it looks like it's not. These are not self-generated, they are co-created. You open the channel, spirit delivers the message, but how do you tell the difference between a real spiritual impression and anxious mental chatter? That's the question everyone asks. And the answer is in the vibration, not the content. Anxious thoughts are noisy, repetitive, fear-based. They demand attention, and often spiral into confusion. They try to convince you. But a true spiritual impression doesn't need to convince you. It arrives with stillness. It may be brief, but it's grounding. It doesn't create more questions. It creates clarity. It doesn't agitate. It reassures. Let's say you're facing a big decision. Your mind is running wild with pros and cons, what-ifs, and worst-case scenarios. You sit down to find stillness, and in the quiet, a single word floats to the surface, or a clear image, or a strong feeling that says, wait, or trust, or go. It doesn't come from fear. It feels like the truth. That's the difference. The source of the thought feels clean. There's no emotional chaos attached to it. Sometimes, the message isn't even verbal. It's a knowing. You walk into a room and instantly feel that something's off, even though everything looks normal. Or you meet someone and feel a powerful connection or aversion that has no logical explanation. That's not guesswork. That's the intuitive mind receiving a download from the spiritual realm. Your aura picked up the signal, your body translated it as a feeling, and your mind interprets it as a thought. The challenge is that most people have been taught to override these impressions. If it can't be proven, measured, or explained, we dismiss it. But the spirit world doesn't operate in proof. It operates in presence. And once you begin to trust the impressions, even a little, they start to come more often. You create a feedback loop. You become a more reliable receiver. And spirit begins to speak more clearly. It helps to start small. Pay attention to your thoughts when you're relaxed. Notice what impressions come when you're emotionally calm. Begin to track the difference between the thoughts that arise from stress and the ones that feel like gifts. Journaling can help. Writing down the impressions, however vague, gives them a container. Over time, you'll see patterns emerge. Certain messages repeat. Certain phrases feel sacred. Certain symbols show up again and again. This isn't about hearing voices or channeling at will. It's about recognizing that your mind is not a closed loop. It's a portal, a receiving center. And when your intention is aligned with love and clarity, the impressions you receive reflect that. Spirits don't care about fame, complexity, or perfect words. They care about resonance. They look for stillness. They respond to readiness. And when they feel it, they reach across the veil not with sound, but with vibration, with thought, with knowing. So the next time an idea shows up fully formed, the next time you hear a sentence in your mind that feels wiser than anything you've ever said, the next time a sense of peace floods your chest out of nowhere, don't dismiss it. Don't call it random. Ask yourself, who sent that? What presence just whispered to my soul? Because the spirit world is speaking, not loudly, not always in the way you expect. But it's speaking. And if you learn to listen, not with your ears, but with your energy, you'll realize it's been speaking all along. You were just learning how to remember its voice. If I told you that not every thought that passes through your mind actually belongs to you. There's a kind of whispering that doesn't come from your own mind, not from memory, not from habit, not even from your subconscious. It arrives quietly, smoothly, like a feather landing on water. A sudden idea with no build-up. A sentence you hear in your own voice, but you weren't thinking it. A visual that flickers across your inner screen, uninvited, yet meaningful. These are not coincidences or daydreams. These are spiritual communications, what some might call thought impressions or mental downloads, and they happen far more often than you realize. Spirits rarely speak in language the way humans do. They don't have mouths, they don't form syllables or shout across some cosmic void. Instead, they speak through resonance, through vibration, through symbols and impulses that bypass the logical brain and land directly in your awareness. That's why the messages they send often feel so sudden, so clear, so certain. You don't have to think about them. You just know. A truth drops into your chest like a key falling into the right lock. Something clicks. It resonates. You feel it. Have you ever been deep in thought and, out of nowhere, a solution appears? One you hadn't been considering. One that just shows up, fully formed, like it came from outside your stream of reasoning. Or maybe you were in the middle of doing something mundane, washing dishes, folding clothes, and suddenly you remember something important that has no connection to what you're doing. That's not always your memory. Sometimes it's a nudge, a whisper, a spirit making contact in the only way they can, through your mind's receptive field. There's a difference between the voice of your thoughts and the arrival of a spiritual impression. Your own mind tends to operate in loops, patterns, echoes of previous worries or ideas. It has a tone. It has a rhythm. But when a thought impression comes from a spiritual source, it often feels cleaner, sharper, more loving. It might still sound like your inner voice, but it carries a different weight. It doesn't argue or spiral or repeat. It simply appears, and it's whole. These impressions often come in moments of openness, when you're emotionally still, mentally quiet, or spiritually seeking. That's why so many people receive them during meditation, prayer, or nature walks. You're not forcing anything, you're just open. And in that openness, your mind becomes a channel. The spirits around you, especially guides, guardians, and loved ones, don't need to scream. They just need you to stop screaming inside. Because once the mental noise fades, their messages rise. It might be a visual, a face you don't know, yet feels familiar, a symbol that keeps repeating in your dreams, a place you've never been, yet keeps seeing. Or it could be a phrase, clear, direct, and compassionate, that cuts through your confusion. And it doesn't just inform you, it reorients you. It brings peace. It lands in your nervous system like an anchor. These are mental downloads. Information transferred in an instant. Too fast for words, too whole to be questioned. You don't analyze it, it just is. And often, it shows up exactly when you need it most. The warning that kept you from making a bad choice. The nudge to call someone. The overwhelming sense that everything is going to be okay, even when it looks like it's not. These are not self-generated, they are co-created. You open the channel, spirit delivers the message. But how do you tell the difference between a real spiritual impression and anxious mental chatter? That's the question everyone asks. And the answer is in the vibration, not the content. Anxious thoughts are noisy, repetitive, fear-based. They demand attention and often spiral into confusion. They try to convince you. But a true spiritual impression doesn't need to convince you. It arrives with stillness. It may be brief, but it's grounding. It doesn't create more questions. It creates clarity. It doesn't agitate. It reassures. Let's say you're facing a big decision. Your mind is running wild with pros and cons, what-ifs, and worst-case scenarios. You sit down to find stillness, and in the quiet, a single word floats to the surface, or a clear image, or a strong feeling that says wait, or trust, or go. It doesn't come from fear. It feels like the truth. That's the difference. The source of the thought feels clean. There's no emotional chaos attached to it. Sometimes, the message isn't even verbal. It's a knowing. You walk into a room and instantly feel that something's off, even though everything looks normal. Or you meet someone and feel a powerful connection or aversion that has no logical explanation. That's not guesswork. That's the intuitive mind receiving a download from the spiritual realm. Your aura picked up the signal. Your body translated it as a feeling, and your mind interprets it as a thought. The challenge is that most people have been taught to override these impressions. If it can't be proven, measured, or explained, we dismiss it. But the spirit world doesn't operate in proof. It operates in presence. And once you begin to trust the impressions, even a little, they start to come more often. You create a feedback loop. You become a more reliable receiver, and spirit begins to speak more clearly. It helps to start small. Pay attention to your thoughts when you're relaxed. Notice what impressions come when you're emotionally calm. Begin to track the difference between the thoughts that arise from stress and the ones that feel like gifts. Journaling can help. Writing down the impressions, however vague, gives them a container. Over time, you'll see patterns emerge. Certain messages repeat. Certain phrases feel sacred. Certain symbols show up again and again. This isn't about hearing voices or channeling at will. It's about recognizing that your mind is not a closed loop. It's a portal, a receiving center. And when your intention is aligned with love and clarity, the impressions you receive reflect that. Spirits don't care about fame, complexity, or perfect words. They care about resonance. They look for stillness. They respond to readiness. And when they feel it, they reach across the veil not with sound, but with vibration, with thought, with knowing. So the next time an idea shows up fully formed, the next time you hear a sentence in your mind that feels wiser than anything you've ever said, the next time a sense of peace floods your chest out of nowhere, don't dismiss it. Don't call it random. Ask yourself, who sent that? What presence just whispered to my soul? Because the spirit world is speaking. Not loudly, not always in the way you expect, but it's speaking. And if you learn to listen, not with your ears, but with your energy, you'll realize it's been speaking all along. You were just learning how to remember its voice. Have you ever had the overwhelming feeling that someone was near you, even though there was no one else in the room? Not in a scary way, but in a way that made you pause and feel held, almost wrapped in something invisible, yet undeniably warm. You couldn't see them, you couldn't hear them, but in that moment, your heart swore they were there. Maybe tears welled up in your eyes for no reason. Maybe you felt a sudden calm flood your chest, or a quiet knowing whisper through your bones. What if I told you those moments aren't just emotional episodes? They're soul recognitions, encounters with familiar spirits your conscious mind has forgotten, but your soul never could. There's a truth many feel but few can explain. The soul remembers more than we think. Long before you were born into this life, you were already known in other realms. Your soul has walked through countless lifetimes, connected with other souls, loved deeply, lost, healed, grown, and sometimes, the spirits you feel around you now are not strangers, they are old friends. You may not recall their names, faces, or voices, but when they draw near, something ancient stirs inside you, a kind of peace that cannot be reasoned with, a sensation of reunion you didn't know you needed. That is soul memory. That is recognition. Soul recognition doesn't always come with dramatic visions or otherworldly dreams. Most often, it arrives in subtle ways, a sudden warmth on your shoulder that feels like an embrace, a whisper of reassurance in your chest that says, you're not alone, an unexplainable sense of being loved, completely, and without condition. You can't trace it back to anything tangible, and yet it feels more real than the room around you. You just know. It's not logic, it's familiarity. It's the same feeling you get when you meet someone in this life, and feel like you've known them forever. Only this time, the one you're remembering isn't visible. Your soul has a language beyond words, a way of identifying frequencies it has encountered before. Just like a tuning fork begins to hum when a matching tone is struck, your energy responds when a kindred soul enters your space. That's why you might suddenly feel a sense of relief, as if something heavy has been lifted, when a spirit draws near. You didn't see anyone, you didn't ask for anything, but suddenly, you're breathing deeper, you're remembering how to trust again. That is what happens when your soul meets a familiar vibration. It's not always clear who they are. Sometimes you'll feel the presence of someone who feels maternal, or protective, or playfully familiar, but you can't place them, and that's okay. These spirits may not be part of your current lineage, they may not even have lived recently. But they are connected to you through the timeless threads of shared experience. Some may have walked with you in past lives, as friends, teachers, lovers, or companions on a spiritual path. Others may be part of your soul group, a constellation of energies that evolve together across lifetimes. When they appear, they don't need to announce themselves. Your heart already knows. Have you ever been in a deeply emotional state, maybe grieving, maybe in awe, maybe in total surrender, and felt a presence move in beside you. It didn't demand attention, it didn't speak aloud, it just existed with you, quietly, respectfully, and in that moment, you felt safe, supported, loved in a way that's hard to describe. That's soul recognition. That's what happens when your soul meets a frequency it remembers. Even if your mind doesn't know the story, your spirit knows the feeling. Children often experience this more freely than adults. With fewer mental barriers, they're more open to soul memories. They might speak of imaginary friends, or talk about someone they've never met in this life, but describe them with uncanny detail. They may even feel watched over or protected without understanding why. As we grow older, we're conditioned to forget. But the memories never truly leave. They just hide beneath layers of distraction and doubt. Yet when a soul you once knew comes near, it all comes rushing back, not as memory, but as emotion, as recognition. That's why you might find yourself crying without knowing the reason, or smiling because the room suddenly feels lighter. These emotional shifts are your soul's response to contact. It's not sadness or joy caused by a current event, it's a remembrance, a recognition that someone you once loved, or someone who once loved you, is with you again, not bound by time, not limited by form, but present nonetheless. You might wonder why these spirits appear when they do. Sometimes it's because you're going through a transition, a period of growth or loss or awakening. Your energy changes, your field expands, and in that opening, familiar souls feel your call. Other times, they're always near, but it's only in moments of stillness or emotional openness that you become aware of them. It's not that they just arrived, it's that you finally tuned in. This is why certain places, songs, or even scents can trigger the feeling of spiritual presence. They act as keys, unlocking doorways in your memory. A melody you've never heard before might move you to tears. A place you've never visited might feel like home. That's not fantasy. It's familiarity. Your soul is picking up the signal, recognizing the frequency, remembering what the mind cannot. And yet, even without names or stories, the presence of a familiar spirit can heal you. Because love doesn't need language. These beings aren't here to explain the past, they're here to support you in the now. Their very nearness is a reminder that you're connected across dimensions, that you're not walking this path alone. Every time you feel their touch, their love, their silent companionship, your soul is being restored. You're being reminded of your own eternal nature. So the next time you feel someone near you and you can't explain why, trust that feeling. The next time you sense a presence while in deep reflection or during a moment of vulnerability, don't dismiss it. Close your eyes, feel into it. Ask your heart, not your head, because your soul knows the truth. It always has. These aren't random spirits passing through. They're not figments of the imagination. They are connections from beyond the veil, from a place where time doesn't separate and love never fades. They are reminders that you are held, that you are remembered, that somewhere beyond this world, someone you once knew, once loved, still knows and still loves you. And even though you may never know their name, you'll recognize their presence, not with your mind, but with your spirit, because once a soul has touched yours, that imprint lasts forever. And when they return, whether in silence, in warmth, or in sudden knowing, you'll feel them, and you'll know, they're home, and so are you. Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night, heart still, room silent, with the unmistakable sense that something, or someone, was near? Not in fear, not in panic, but in that strange, quiet awareness where time doesn't feel quite real. What if I told you that there are sacred moments, windows in your day and night, where the veil between this world and the next grows thinner, softer, more transparent than usual, and in those moments, spirits don't just whisper, they come close enough for you to feel them breathe. There are certain times when spirit communication is naturally stronger, when your energy is most receptive and the interference from the outside world is at its lowest. These times are not chosen randomly, they are rooted in the rhythm of the earth, the frequency of consciousness, and the nature of your own awareness. Among them, the hours between 3 and 4 a.m. have long been considered sacred, an opening in the fabric of reality where the unseen becomes just a little more seen. And it's not just ancient tradition that points to this hour. Many people, across cultures and beliefs, report waking up during this time without knowing why, only to find themselves caught in a liminal space, not quite asleep, not quite awake, and yet deeply aware. In these early morning hours, the mind is quiet, the collective noise of the world has settled, and in that silence, your energetic field becomes more refined. You are no longer entangled in the distractions of your daily identity, your ego is at rest. The parts of you that doubt, overanalyze, or resist, are softened. What remains is the part of you that knows how to listen, how to receive. And it is in this stillness that Spirit speaks. Perhaps you've had dreams during this time that felt too vivid to be fiction. Perhaps you've received images, messages, or entire downloads that felt as though they came from beyond your own thoughts. Or maybe you've simply felt watched over, not in a haunting sense, but in a protective one. These moments aren't imagination, they're alignment. Your consciousness is floating closer to the spirit plane, and the spirits that walk with you sense your openness. That's why they come closer, not to invade, but to support, not to control, but to communicate. Right before sleep is another doorway, that moment when your thoughts begin to blur, your breath slows, and your awareness starts to descend into the subconscious, is a prime window for contact. Spirits use this time to drop in impressions, to send visions, to help resolve energy that may have been stirred up during the day. That's why you may suddenly remember someone you haven't thought of in years, or feel a wave of emotion rise just as you're drifting off. It's not random. As your defenses lower and your conscious mind releases its grip, spiritual messages can flow in more easily. You become a canvas, a receiver, and sometimes even a meeting place. Likewise, just after waking, before your phone is in your hand, before the weight of the day returns, is another thin place. That short window when you're still half dreaming, when your mind hasn't yet kicked into full gear, is a continuation of the spiritual openness you experienced overnight. If you've ever noticed that some of your most profound insights come during this time, or that you wake up with a song in your head, a face in your mind, or a feeling you can't shake, that's spirit still lingering. They haven't left, they're just waiting to see if you'll notice. Deep meditation is perhaps the most conscious gateway of them all. When you intentionally slow your breath, silence your thoughts, and shift your awareness inward, you are recreating the same conditions that occur during those sacred sleep cycle windows. Your body relaxes, your brain waves change, your heart becomes a tuning instrument, and in that space, you're not reaching out to spirit, they're already there, you're just finally quiet enough to hear them. Meditation doesn't summon spirits, it reveals their constant presence. These high-tide hours of spiritual contact are not bound by time zones or calendars. They are energetic intervals, moments where your field is more porous and your spirit is more attuned. The veil isn't a fixed wall, it's a dynamic boundary that shifts with your awareness. And these special times are when that boundary is at its most translucent. It's during these moments that subtle becomes obvious. The feeling of a hand on your shoulder, the whisper of a name in your inner ear, the sudden presence of a loved one who passed. These are all signs of contact. Not loud, not jarring, but powerful in their simplicity. Spirit does not need drama to be known. It only needs silence and permission. If you start paying attention to these windows, you'll begin to notice patterns. You might start waking up at the same hour each night, and instead of brushing it off, you'll sit in stillness and feel who's near. You may begin to journal your thoughts right before sleep and discover that some of them didn't come from you. Or you may set an intention before meditating and be surprised at how quickly guidance arrives, not always in words, but in impressions, shifts, clarity. These are not tricks. This is what happens when you become energetically available. To recognize spirit in these times, you don't need rituals or complicated practices. You only need awareness, the willingness to be still, the courage to feel. Because these moments, brief as they are, contain entire conversations. The ones you've been longing to have, the answers you thought were far away, the love you assumed had been lost, they are all present, waiting to unfold within you. It's in the hours when the world is asleep that the other world speaks the loudest. Not with noise, but with presence. Not with sound, but with vibration. If you dare to listen, you'll hear it. the quiet pulse of another realm, the gentle breath of a guide beside you, the loving glance of someone who knew you before this life began. These sacred hours are invitations. Invitations to remember that spirit is not bound by the limits of daylight. That guidance does not clock in and out. That love from the other side flows continuously, and all it takes is a few moments of stillness to step into its current. So the next time you wake up at 3 a.m. with a strange feeling, the next time you pause in meditation and feel the air shift around you, the next time a sense of comfort brushes against you right before you sleep, don't brush it away. Don't reach for distraction. Breathe into it. Let it unfold, because in that moment, someone may be near, watching, loving, guiding, and all they need is for you to say yes, to become aware, to allow the veil to part. That's when spirit speaks the loudest, when you are still enough to hear, when you are open enough to feel, when you stop asking for signs and start recognizing the ones already present. The night speaks. The silence speaks. And within it, your spirit family speaks too, if you're willing to listen. What if I told you that not every spirit you feel is meant to be welcomed? That the invisible world, like this one, is filled with both light and confusion, clarity and distortion, guides who lift you and energies that linger with no sense of direction or truth? You may not hear this often, especially in circles that romanticize all things spiritual, but the truth is essential. Not all spirit contact is beneficial. Some encounters uplift your soul, others drain your energy, and knowing the difference can mean everything. When you begin to open the doors between worlds, you must do so with reverence, with wisdom, with discernment. Because the moment you start to broadcast the signal, someone, or something, will answer. That's the nature of energy. What you send out, you attract. What you're available for, you receive. So when you explore the spiritual realm without clear intent or protection, you may end up inviting in more than you were ready for. Spirits are drawn to vibration. That's the fundamental law. Just like moths to a flame, certain energies are pulled toward emotional frequencies that match their own. So if you're curious but afraid, if you're seeking but ungrounded, if your heart is open but your boundaries are loose, you may unintentionally become a beacon for wandering or confused energies. Those who have not yet transitioned fully, or who linger between worlds, seeking attention, validation, or even control. These are not necessarily evil spirits in the way movies have portrayed them. Most are simply fragmented, disconnected from source, caught in unresolved emotional loops. But just like in life, confused minds can cause harm, even without intending to. When these spirits make contact, it often feels different from the presence of a true guide or loved one. You might feel unsettled rather than supported. The room may feel heavy, your thoughts scattered, your emotions suddenly unstable. This is not coincidence. It's a sign that the frequency of the contact is not aligned with love or truth. You may have felt it before. A spiritual presence that came in while you were experimenting, maybe dabbling with practices you didn't fully understand. Maybe you were just curious, asking for signs, trying to summon, or playing with tools, without learning how to use them with intention. Ouija boards, pendulums, spirit apps, even meditation or ritual performed from a space of desperation or anxiety can open doors. And once opened, those doors are not easily closed, unless you know how. The moment your curiosity lacks spiritual grounding, you begin to attract reflection rather than guidance. Energies that mimic truth, but are not anchored in it. They may pose as familiar. They may present visions or ideas that seem appealing at first, but leave you feeling unbalanced after. That's the test. How do you feel after contact? Are you more at peace? More whole? Or are you foggy, depleted, unsure of yourself? True spiritual contact brings clarity. Even if it challenges you, it grounds you. It respects your free will. It does not demand attention or instill fear. Unconscious contact, on the other hand, often comes with confusion, obsession, or energetic instability. You find yourself thinking about the experience constantly, trying to make sense of what you saw or felt, unable to let it go. That's a sign you've opened a loop that hasn't yet found closure. This is why spiritual protection is not just important, it's essential. Protection is not about fear, it's about boundaries. Just as you lock your home at night, not because you live in paranoia, but because you understand the need for safety, you must do the same with your energy. Your aura is your home, your intention is your lock, and your discernment is the key. Before any spiritual work, whether it's meditation, prayer, dream exploration, or communication with the unseen, you must set your field, declare your space sacred. Call in protection from the highest loving forces. Ask only for that which serves your highest good, and most importantly, state that you are not available for deception, confusion, or manipulation. That may sound dramatic, but in the realm of spirit, clarity is power. A strong boundary protects you far more effectively than fear ever will. Fear, in fact, is one of the most dangerous energies to bring into spiritual contact. Why? Because it lowers your frequency. It makes you more susceptible to interference. Spirits that are not in alignment with love feed off fear, not in a sinister sense, but because they vibrate on the same level. If you're afraid, ungrounded, and searching, they sense that chaos and move toward it. That's why it's so important to regulate your emotional state before you open up. Curiosity is beautiful, but if it's laced with fear or desperation, it becomes a magnet for spiritual static. Even something as seemingly harmless as asking for a sign from anyone can backfire. You wouldn't leave your front door wide open in a crowded city and invite in anyone passing by, would you? You'd be specific, intentional. You'd make sure the person you're welcoming has a reason to be there. It's the same in spirit. General invitations yield general responses. But when you anchor your intent in love and clarity, when you seek connection only with those beings who operate in alignment with divine truth, you change everything. Discernment doesn't mean being suspicious of every impression or doubting every sign. It means being tuned in enough to feel the difference between what uplifts you and what drains you. Between presence that brings calm and presence that leaves you agitated. Between messages that confirm your inner truth and messages that stir confusion or dependency. The more you refine your intuition, the easier this becomes. You were never meant to walk this path in fear, but you were meant to walk it in wisdom. Spirit communication is sacred. It is not entertainment. It is a relationship, not a spectacle. And like any relationship, it requires trust, respect, and maturity. You can explore the invisible realms safely and beautifully, but only when you respect the reality that not everything unseen is benevolent by default. The good news is this. When your heart is clear, your intentions rooted in love, and your spirit protected by conscious awareness, you become nearly untouchable to lower energies. They may pass by, but they cannot enter. They may knock, but you do not answer. And instead, you open yourself only to the beings who come in peace, who come in love, who come not to take your power but to remind you of it. So the next time you feel a presence, pause. Listen not just with your ears, but with your whole body. Ask yourself, how do I feel right now? Expanded or contracted? Steady or off balance? Clear or clouded? That is your compass. That is your protection. The spirit world is not dangerous by nature, but navigating it unconsciously can be. Curiosity, when paired with wisdom, opens doors to deep truth. But curiosity, without grounding, becomes a risk. Be clear, be still, be intentional. And trust that when you stand in your light, only light will answer. The rest will pass you by, unable to touch what is protected by purpose and love. What if I told you that your ability to feel and connect with the spirit world is not about talent or luck, but preparation? That the energy you carry into the unseen realms is what determines who, or what, meets you there. Spirit communication doesn't begin when the presence arrives. It begins long before, in the way you live, the way you think, the way you feel, and most importantly, the clarity of your intent. You are a receiver, but more than that, you are a filter. And if you want to welcome beings of light, peace, and guidance, you must become the kind of vessel that such energies are drawn to. The first step in preparing yourself as a safe receiver is establishing something few people consider, a spiritual ideal. Think of this as the lighthouse in your inner world, the unwavering beam that guides both your own consciousness and any spiritual energies that may approach. Your spiritual ideal is the frequency you intend to align with. It is your commitment to truth, to love, to integrity. Without it, you're like a radio scanning static, catching bits of signal from anywhere and everywhere. But with a clear ideal, you tune directly into a vibration that only allows aligned contact to come through. Your spiritual ideal doesn't need to be a complex doctrine or a set of rigid beliefs. It can be a word, love, peace, service, truth. It can be a feeling you strive to return to, again and again, especially when you forget. When you decide on that ideal, when you name it and claim it, you begin creating an energetic boundary. You're telling the spirit world, only those who resonate with this are welcome here. And that alone shifts the entire nature of your contact. But holding an ideal isn't a one-time declaration. It's a practice. That's where spiritual hygiene comes in. Just like your physical body needs daily care, your energy field does too. Especially when you begin opening yourself up to subtle realms. Without cleansing, centering, and restoring your vibration, your field can become cluttered. Not necessarily with darkness, but with residue, the thoughts, emotions, and fragments of energy you pick up just by living in the world. And when your field is cluttered, your signal weakens. You become harder to read for higher beings, and more accessible to energies that thrive on confusion. Meditation is one of the most powerful ways to tend to your spiritual hygiene. It's not just about relaxation, it's about realignment. Every time you sit in stillness, you give your mind and energy field the opportunity to reattune to your ideal. You quiet the noise that drowns out subtle impressions. You release thoughts that aren't serving your clarity. And most importantly, you expand your sensitivity without weakening your protection. A well-trained mind is like a well-tuned instrument. It can detect the slightest change in energy and respond with awareness instead of fear. Reading or listening to uplifting texts is another tool, one that's often overlooked. When you feed your mind with wisdom, compassion, and higher truths, you raise your internal vibration. You begin to resonate with the frequencies of the very beings you're hoping to connect with. You create resonance before contact even occurs. Whether it's sacred writings, spiritual teachings, or even poetry that stirs your soul, the point is the same. What you place into your consciousness becomes the magnet for what you draw toward you. Prayer, when it comes from gratitude, not desperation, is also a key that opens the spiritual gateway with safety and beauty. You don't need to pray for contact. You pray to align. You pray to remember. You pray to clear out the noise of fear and welcome the wisdom of trust. When your prayers come from a place of reverence and humility, they signal to the unseen that you are a grounded receiver. Not someone seeking power or spectacle, but someone ready to serve, ready to listen, and ready to grow. It's important to know that spirits, especially those of high vibration, are not drawn to chaos. They're not enticed by fear, by obsession, or by frantic asking. They are attuned to peace. That's why your vibration matters more than your words. You can say all the right things, but if your energy is anxious or scattered, the quality of the connection will reflect that. But if your energy is calm, centered, and genuinely aligned with your ideal, the spirits who resonate with that will naturally draw closer. Like attracts like, always. This is why becoming a safe receiver is less about controlling the unseen and more about mastering the seen, yourself, your thoughts, your emotions, your habits of attention. When you begin to live from your spiritual ideal, not just visit it occasionally, you transform your entire aura. You become a beacon, not for just any presence, but for the kind of presence that heals, restores, and awakens you. There is no need to rush. The preparation itself is sacred. Every time you choose stillness over distraction, every time you choose love over fear, every time you speak from truth rather than performance, you are preparing. You're saying to the unseen, I'm not just curious, I'm committed. I'm not just open, I'm ready. That readiness is felt, not just by spirits, but by the deeper layers of your own soul. It creates coherence between your inner and outer worlds. It reduces the noise that pulls you away from your sensitivity. And it strengthens the foundation that allows for clear, safe, and transformative contact. Remember, you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be enlightened. You only need to be intentional. You only need to be honest. The spirit world doesn't require your flawlessness. It responds to your sincerity. So when you sit in meditation, when you read something sacred, When you say a quiet prayer of gratitude for simply being alive, you are tuning your field. You are doing the invisible work that allows the invisible to become visible. And as your vibration rises, not artificially, but authentically, you will notice a shift, not just in what you feel, but in how you feel. You'll begin to recognize when you're in a receptive state. You'll begin to know, deep in your being, which impressions come from love and which don't. And more than anything, you'll begin to trust yourself. Because preparing yourself as a safe receiver is ultimately about becoming someone you can trust, someone who listens not just with ears, but with discernment, someone who seeks not just contact, but alignment. So don't underestimate the power of your preparation. Don't wait for some dramatic sign. Begin now, choose your ideal, tend to your spirit like sacred ground. Lift your vibration through the choices you make daily, not out of fear, but out of devotion. And know that every small act of inner alignment sends a signal through the veil. I am here. I am listening. I am ready to receive only what is of the light. And in that quiet readiness, the right presence will come, not to prove something to you, but to remind you of what you already are. A divine being, made of light, remembering how to feel it again. What if I told you that the guidance you seek, the clarity, the peace, the sense of divine presence, is already around you right now, patiently waiting for you to rise into it? Not in a place you must travel to, and not behind some secret spiritual door, but right here, layered in vibration just above where your usual awareness tends to rest. You don't need to chase spirits, or beg for signs. You don't need to force contact or prove yourself worthy. What you need is alignment, because the higher guidance you're longing for is always broadcasting. It's your signal that needs tuning. Imagine for a moment that your body is a radio. Your mind, your heart, your emotions, they're all part of the antenna system. And just like a radio can't hear a station it isn't tuned into, your consciousness can't receive messages from higher beings if you're vibrating at a frequency that's filled with static. That static isn't always dramatic. It's the everyday heaviness, resentment, stress, fear, guilt, comparison. It clogs the channels. It's not punishment, it's just physics. Guidance doesn't disappear, it becomes inaudible. So, how do you raise your frequency? How do you become a clearer receiver for the light, loving intelligence that's trying to reach you? The answer isn't mysterious. In fact, it's incredibly human. It starts with gratitude. Gratitude isn't just about being thankful, it's about entering the emotional frequency of wholeness. When you are truly grateful, even for something small, you open your heart's field, you become a beacon, and that light pulls in guidance like a magnet. Because beings of higher consciousness are drawn to gratitude the way birds are drawn to morning light. They feel the openness. They feel the invitation. Try beginning your day, not with worry, but with a silent thank you. Not just for what's going right, but for your breath, for your body, for the chance to be here. Gratitude doesn't need a grand reason. The act itself lifts you. You can feel it in your body. The shoulders soften, the heart opens, the mind quiets. That's frequency work. That's alignment. Another powerful tool, often overlooked, is forgiveness. Not just of others, but of yourself. Forgiveness clears energetic residue. It dissolves the heavy emotions that weigh your field down. Anger, even when justified, creates emotional static. It locks you into the past. And spirits who operate in high dimensions don't speak through bitterness, they move through peace. When you forgive, not to excuse, but to release, you rise. And in that rising, you make yourself more available to divine insight, more available to beings who exist in the vibration of compassion. Forgiveness is an inner shift. You don't have to say it out loud. You don't have to pretend everything was okay. You just need to say to your own soul, I choose to stop carrying this weight. I set myself free. That simple act is like clearing the dust from your inner mirror. Suddenly, light can reflect again. Suddenly, guidance returns. Focused meditation is another doorway. Not all meditation is created equal. While any stillness is valuable, focused meditation, where you consciously hold the intention to align with higher wisdom, creates a sacred current. You're not just calming your thoughts, you're aligning your field. You're saying to the universe, I am open to truth. I am listening from my heart, not just my head. This kind of meditation doesn't have to be long. Even 5 minutes of sincere stillness, with a clear intention, can shift your entire vibration. You might try visualizing your body filled with light. Or imagine yourself in the presence of a benevolent guide. Feel what it would be like to be in that energy, calm, assured, protected. That feeling itself is the bridge. The visualization doesn't summon the guide, it helps you rise to where they already are. And once you're there, impressions begin to flow. Ideas you didn't expect. Feelings of peace that seem to come from nowhere. That's not imagination. That's connection. Sacred music can also serve as a tuning fork for the soul. Music that's created with reverence, with tones that uplift rather than agitate, has the ability to cleanse your energy field effortlessly. Just as a certain melody can bring you to tears, certain harmonics can attune you to spirit. Gregorian chants, crystal bowl frequencies, nature sounds, devotional hymns. These are not just soothing, they are vibrational tools. When you listen deeply, not just with your ears, but with your heart, you enter a state of resonance. And once you're resonating with the higher frequencies of love and harmony, guidance becomes almost inevitable. You're not reaching out anymore. You're meeting spirit in the middle. One of the most important things to understand is that spiritual contact isn't something you earn, it's something you allow. And you allow it by becoming compatible with the guidance you're asking for. That's the secret most people miss. If you're asking for peace while dwelling in chaos, you may not hear the response. If you're seeking clarity while feeding your confusion, the message may come through distorted. But when you shift, when you consciously rise to meet the energy of what you seek, it becomes clear, almost effortless. You align, it arrives. You don't need to chase spirits. You don't need to plead or beg or prove you're spiritual enough. That kind of striving lowers your vibration. It comes from lack. But the moment you realize that you are already worthy of contact, already capable of communion, the energy shifts. You begin to rise, not because you're trying to escape yourself, but because you're finally becoming your true self. The self that's always been light underneath the layers. The self that's always known how to listen. Higher guides, true guides, do not force their presence. They do not compete with noise. They wait, lovingly, patiently, endlessly. They wait for that moment when your heart opens, when your energy clears, when your soul says yes, without desperation. And then, they come close, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in sudden clarity, sometimes in the feeling that someone just entered the room and brought a wave of peace with them. You'll know it, because it won't be loud or flashy. It will feel like home. So begin not by searching outward, but by refining inward. Practice gratitude, forgive, meditate with purpose. Surround yourself with sound and words that lift you. And most importantly, let go of the belief that spirit is somewhere far away. They are not. They are just on the other side of your vibration. When you lift yourself, not artificially, but authentically, you make contact natural. You become a safe and sacred receiver. Not because you summoned something powerful, but because you finally remembered how powerful your own alignment truly is. And once you remember, the guidance you've been waiting for shows up, not as something new, but as something that's been patiently waiting for you to rise and meet it. What if I told you that the signs you've been waiting for have already arrived, more than once? That the flicker in the light, the song that plays at just the right moment, the dream that stays with you long after you wake, these aren't coincidences. They're conversations. And the more you begin to notice, the more you'll see. Spirit doesn't always speak in grand gestures. More often, it speaks through the gentle, the subtle, and the quiet nudges you feel in your chest before your mind has time to explain them away. The truth is, spirit is always around you. Whether it's loved ones who've crossed over, guides walking with you through this life, or messengers from the higher realms, these beings use the language of energy to communicate. And energy shows up in the physical world in very particular ways that are deeply personal and yet universally recognizable once your awareness begins to sharpen. Take flickering lights, for example. How many times have you dismissed a light bulb flickering as nothing more than electrical? But what if, just for a moment, you paused to ask yourself what you were thinking about when it happened? Were you reflecting on someone who passed? Were you asking a question in your heart? The physical world is a canvas upon which spirit paints with subtlety. Lights flickering, electronics behaving oddly, music suddenly playing that speaks directly to what you're feeling. These moments aren't random, they're energetic winks from the other side. Spirit doesn't manipulate objects for drama. It nudges the environment in ways that match your energy. And when you notice, when you feel that resonance, the communication deepens. Then there are the dreams. Not every dream is a message, but you know the ones that are. They feel different, vivid, emotionally charged, in a way that lingers into the day. Sometimes you dream of someone who's passed. Maybe they don't speak, or maybe they say something so simple yet so clear, and you wake up with a sense of peace you can't explain. That's not your subconscious playing memories on repeat. That's soul-level contact. Spirit often uses sleep as a bridge. Your mind is quiet, your defenses are down, and the veil becomes permeable. It's in these spaces that real messages are delivered. Sometimes through symbols, other times through direct interaction. If you start writing them down, you'll begin to notice patterns, phrases that repeat, emotions that return, even specific people who visit you during times of transition. Your dream world becomes a map, revealing that you are not alone on this path. Synchronicities are another sign, perhaps the most frequent. You think of someone, and they call. You ask for a sign, and suddenly the word or image appears on a billboard, in a book, in a conversation you overhear. These aren't just chance moments. They are spiritual breadcrumbs leading you back to your inner knowing. Synchronicities occur when your vibration aligns with divine timing, when your intention creates a pathway for energy to mirror your truth back to you. You might see repeating numbers like 111, 222, 444, each carrying a unique vibrational message. These aren't just cute patterns, they are energetic timestamps, reminding you to tune in. The universe is always in motion, and when you become aware of the rhythm, you begin to move with it rather than against it. Animal messengers are another common way spirit communicates. Have you ever noticed a particular bird showing up again and again during a specific time in your life? A butterfly landing on your hand during a moment of grief. A dragonfly hovering in stillness while you contemplate something deep within you. Spirit often works through nature. Animals are sensitive to energy in ways most humans have forgotten. They are not just showing up randomly, they are being guided, and their appearance can carry messages of reassurance, confirmation, or even caution. Pay attention to how you feel when these encounters happen. What were you just thinking? What question was sitting in your heart? The natural world is always listening, and spirit moves through it to reach you. All of these signs, whether they come through physical senses, intuition, or dreams, are meant to do one thing: build a bridge of trust. Trust that what you feel is valid. Trust that you are connected. Trust that your discernment is growing stronger every day, because once you start noticing the patterns, you begin to see that this communication isn't a rare event, it's a constant stream. The only thing that changes is your awareness of it. This is why journaling is so powerful, not just to record signs, but to confirm your own growth. When you start writing down what you notice, those strange coincidences, those emotional dream encounters, those moments of knowing that defy logic, you begin to see the threads weaving together. You begin to realize that this isn't just your imagination, it's a dialogue, one that you're now fluent enough to recognize. Start simple. When something unusual happens, jot it down. What were you feeling at the time? What were you asking the universe for? What emotion lingered afterward? As you build this record, you'll start to see how consistent spirit really is. You'll start to see how guidance comes through just when you need it. And over time, you'll no longer need to ask, was that real? Because you'll know it was. The goal is not to obsess over every flicker or every number. The goal is to become so attuned to your own energetic field that you can feel the difference between random noise and divine signal. You'll begin to feel when a presence is with you. You'll feel it in your body, in your chest, in your spine, in the subtle shift of the air around you. That's not superstition. That's spiritual resonance. As your trust builds, so does your capacity to discern. You start to realize that spirit isn't some distant force that drops by once in a while. It's here, now, always. And the more you trust that presence, the more it reveals itself to you. The signs become clearer. The communication becomes easier. Not because spirit has changed, but because you've opened, you've aligned, you've remembered. You were never meant to feel disconnected. You were never meant to walk through life wondering if you were supported. The signs are everywhere. They are tailored to you, to your language, your fears, your longings. Spirit meets you where you are, in the symbols and messages you'll understand. Not to impress you, but to remind you that you're not alone, that you are being guided with more love than you can currently imagine. So keep your eyes open, keep your heart soft, keep your pen ready. This isn't about chasing signs, it's about receiving them. Trust what you feel, record what you notice, and most importantly, give yourself permission to believe that, yes, they are with you, always have been, always will be, and now, finally, you're beginning to feel it. What if I told you that the very moment you felt most alone, the moment you stared into the darkness and heard only silence, was the moment you were actually surrounded the most? That even in your emptiest nights, a presence was there, not watching from a distance, but walking beside you, patient, gentle, and deeply in love with who you are becoming. The truth is, you are never alone. Not for a single breath, not for a single heartbeat. There are eyes upon you, eyes that do not judge, but witness your journey with compassion so vast it cannot be put into words. You may not always feel them. The world is loud, the mind is busier than ever, and the spiritual senses are subtle. But when you begin to slow down, to quiet the noise and listen, not with your ears, but with your soul, you'll feel it. That hush that enters a room when you start to speak your truth out loud. That unexplainable warmth in your chest when you're on the verge of giving up, and something stops you. That deep, almost wordless sense that someone is helping you, whispering a direction, nudging your heart to keep going. That's not your imagination. That's spiritual companionship. That's your unseen family. You see, spirit contact is not something reserved for mystics and mediums. It's a natural part of being human, an integral part of your soul's education. You came here not to be cut off from the spirit world, but to walk beside it, to learn how to feel through your intuition what you cannot see with your eyes. And that skill, the ability to sense the presence of something greater, is not about summoning ghosts or chasing signs. It's about becoming present enough, still enough, real enough, to feel what's already there. Spiritual guides do not barge into your life. They honor your free will. They don't show up with fireworks or loud pronouncements. They arrive in stillness, in resonance, in moments when your soul begins to remember its origins. You might feel them as peace in the midst of chaos, as clarity that appears without explanation, as a loving presence when you think no one understands you, and what they want most isn't to impress you, it's to remind you of who you truly are, of the light you carry that can never be extinguished, of the mission you agreed to long before this lifetime began. The contact you feel is never random. It's part of a vast, ongoing dialogue between you and the divine, between your waking self and your eternal self. Each moment of contact is like a note in a song, guiding you, teaching you, refining you, and when you begin to see it that way, the fear starts to dissolve. This isn't spooky, it isn't dangerous. It's sacred. Spirit contact is not a trick of the mind or an interference, it's a form of love, a higher octave of support, and it happens not to scare you, but to grow you, to remind you that you're not doing this life alone. Even your challenges, your pain, your doubts, they're not signs of abandonment, they're opportunities, initiations, times when your soul is expanding into new awareness, and your spiritual allies stand closer than ever, but they won't always intervene. Sometimes they'll watch, holding the space, letting you choose, because your growth is more important than your comfort, but never doubt, they are there, cheering in silence, waiting with infinite patience for you to rise again. You were born with this connection. It's not something you earn, it's something you remember. And as you begin to remember, the world around you softens. What once felt random becomes meaningful. What once felt isolated becomes illuminated. You begin to recognize that every moment, every breath, every step is witnessed. And that recognition brings a level of peace no external circumstance can take from you, because when you truly know you are not alone, fear loses its grip. This is not about dependence on the spirit realm. It's about communion. It's about walking through life with an open heart, knowing that just beyond the veil are loving intelligences who have walked this path before you, who understand your struggles not from theory, but from memory. Some of them have been with you for lifetimes. Others appear when the timing is right, but all of them are drawn to your light, to your willingness to grow, to love, to evolve, and they will never force. They will only invite. Your job is not to force the contact, but to honor it when it comes, to stay open, yet grounded, receptive, yet discerning. And most importantly, to live your life, not as someone waiting to be rescued, but as someone empowered by invisible allies. That shift in mindset changes everything. Suddenly, your path becomes a co-creation. You're not begging the universe for help. You're walking with it. You're listening. You're responding. You're living in harmony with the unseen world, not in fear of it. If you've ever felt a hand on your shoulder with no one there, if you've ever heard your name whispered in a moment of despair, if you've ever had a thought enter your mind that calmed you in ways nothing else could, then you've already experienced what it means to walk with the unseen. You already know more than you think, and that knowing is not meant to be rare, it's meant to be remembered, strengthened, embraced. So trust what you feel, honor your experiences, write them down, speak them out loud, not for validation, but for integration. Because every time you give voice to what you've sensed, you expand your ability to sense even more. And with that expansion comes confidence, not arrogance, but the quiet confidence that says, I am guided, I am supported, I am never alone. Let that become your spiritual affirmation, not just something you say, but something you know. You are seen, fully. Even in your mess, even in your moments of doubt, you are being held by love. You are guided, not by force, but by gentle alignment. And you are loved, not because of what you do, but because of what you are, a soul, brave enough to enter this dense world, walking a path that very few have the courage to walk. And so I invite you now to pause, just for a moment, take a breath, feel the stillness. Beneath the noise, beyond the thoughts, something ancient is with you, something kind, something wise. You're not alone. You never were. And now that you know that, not just with your mind, but with your entire being, you will begin to walk differently. Not in fear, not in desperation, but in sacred companionship. In the quiet, confident knowing that no matter where you go, the unseen walks with you, always.